Everyone's looking good today? Not too stressed out about the win last night from the Niners? No? It was close, right? I get a little bit worried, yeah. All right, somebody's ready for the NFC Championship. Okay, so as we continue this year, the 125th anniversary of the Buddhist Church of Sacramento, you've heard me speak 3 Sundays in a row, which is, I think, kind of uncommon, but yeah. Hopefully you're getting sick of me because then you're getting Reverend Yuki next week. So, who remembers what our theme is, the tagline for the 125th? Compassion, community, culture. Very good. So I did, what was that? So we still have culture. I did compassion, I did community, and we have culture. All right, let's see if I can do this. To upstairs, right? Upstairs or TV input?
What's that?
Upstairs? To upstairs, right?
Upstairs.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right. All right, culture. Okay. So, culture is defined on the internet as the way of life, especially the general customs and beliefs of a particular group of people at a particular time. It's the set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterizes an institution or organization, and the set of values, conventions, or social practices associated with a particular field, activity, or societal characteristic. So all of these things can be applied to the temple that we have here and the culture that we have at the temple. So we have a very particular culture based on many things in the past, based on the makeup of the people now today, and it's an important theme that we should think about throughout this year. I mean, really for the rest of our lives, but especially focusing on it this year during the 125th anniversary. So one of the things that we have in our culture is the Japanese influence from the immigrants that came over. And so we have a lot of the traditions still from them from 125 years ago that they brought over. And one of them that we just observed recently is the New Year's service, right? So New Year's Day and everything, and it's a big thing within the Japanese community, Japanese American community. But a lot of times we don't really know the reason why we do certain things. And so I got asked about the kasane mochi. And I thought, that's a good question. I should answer that for everybody, because probably other people have similar questions as well, right? So this is all in Japanese, so you can't understand it. Or maybe some of you can. But kasane mochi is the meaning of it. Kasane is a pile, or like it's stacked. But it's also known as kagami mochi. And so kagami means, in Japanese, it means mirror. The reason why it's, before I continue, I want to let you know that there are a lot of different legends and explanations as to what each of these things mean. And so, you talk to other people that might have a different explanation. It doesn't mean that, I'm right or they're right or one of us is wrong, but there's all these different explanations for it. And that's one of the fun things about having these traditions is they can be explained in a lot of different ways. So the reason why it's called kagami mochi is that there is this, there's a picture of what an ancient mirror looked like in Japan. So this is the Edo period, circa 1661 to 72, according to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And this one, as you can see, is very round. So round like the round mochi that we have. And this belief that the mirrors were very sacred objects because they were seen as this intermediary between gods and people. And so people should receive blessings from the gods by sharing and eating mochi offered to the gods, wishing happiness for the next year. So the kagami mochi is this precious rice cake that is offered to the gods, and this offering is, it takes on these many different meanings. So with the mirror are round in shape like the mochi, but it reflects the light, it shines like the sun, and so it is said to have enshrined the divine body of the sun goddess in Japan, Amaterasu. So this is one of the great gods in Japanese mythology, and so again, this is what makes the mirror sacred, and thus the mochi sacred as well. In addition, the kagami of kagami mochi is said to have been derived from kangamiru, which it means to take into account, to bear in mind, to consider, to learn, to take warning from. So in other words, this kangami mochi, it means to consider our actions in comparison to the ideal or the model behavior would be this coming year. So in addition, the round shape also represents family harmony, and the layered figure also means to celebrate the year ahead. On top of all that, it's also said to represent the moon and the sun by layering the two cakes, one large and one small. And this is auspicious because of the overlap of happiness and wealth, or good fortune. It also has the meaning of aging peacefully. So I'm not really sure what the aging peacefully is, I guess. If you get just a little bit bigger every year, then that's peacefully or something, instead of getting a lot bigger. And then I thought it was also interesting that there is this overlap of happiness and wealth, and that they're two separate things. So they can be, overlapping, but they are different. That necessarily happiness isn't wealth, although I suppose there's another Dharma talk in there somewhere. So the kagami mochi is often seen in 2 tiers, but depending on the region and the place that it's placed, it can also be 3. So now, to go back to that diagram that I had, this is a real basic setup of what it would look like. And so I wanted to go through the different features here. Let's see. So the shihobeni, which is this piece of paper, the paper underneath it, you can't see behind it, but there's another corner. So there's 4 corners to it. That's what it means essentially, is this 4-cornered paper. It's a piece of colored paper, which you put the kagami mochi on, and it's bordered with red on all sides. So the red is a very auspicious color within Japan, within Eastern Asia, and it says that it worships the 4 sides of heaven and earth, and it wards off disaster away from your house. Above that is the urajiro, which is a kind of fern. So the fern gets its name because so ura is like the back, and shiro or jiro is white. So you can't really see it, but the bottom of the fern is actually white. So it's green on the top, white on the bottom. And since the back of the leaf is white, it's said to represent this pure and innocent heart with no dark place in the back. The urajiro also symbolizes the wish that you'll prosper for a long time, because apparently ferns, the way they grow is the new leaves grow along the old leaves, as opposed to like a tree where all the old leaves fall off and the new ones come. So because they grow together alongside, it's that you prosper for a long time. And since the bottom is white, it's also the wish that you will grow old enough to have white hair. So I thought that was interesting, where it's oh yeah, it's white hair. Usually people are really upset about it and they try to pull it out, but you don't want to pull it out because then 3 grow in that place. But anyway, it's the opposite of that idea, where it's oh, I wish I grow old enough to have white hair. Okay, and then let's see, this sampo, which is the stand that it's on. It's a platform with holes on 3 sides. So you can't really tell from this diagram, but there's a hole in the front, and there should be a hole on each of the sides in the left and the right, but the back does not have a hole. I was trying to figure out why, and there wasn't really a good explanation as to why that exists, or why you place it with the back facing either the kami-sama or whatever. But for whatever reason, that's the thing. And it's made typically out of a white cypress wood, which is known as a sacred tree since ancient times, and you put things on it during ceremonies, but you can really use whatever. I saw these videos where you can use an old milk carton or something to make it out of, so it doesn't matter. It's just this symbolic thing that you're putting something on a platform as you're kind of elevating it to offer to somebody. I don't know, I guess it's if you were to give somebody something, if they came over to your house, you wouldn't just put it on the table in front of them, you put a plate underneath it, right? So it's a fancy plate. Anyway, all right. And then the last part is the daidai on the top. So the daidai is a sort of bitter citrus fruit. And typically people don't use this fruit. So oftentimes it'll be a mikan or a tangerine, because it's just easier to get. But originally it was this daidai. And the reason why they use it is because the name of it is the same reading for the word for generations, or generation to generation through the ages. And also, since the tree that it comes from has a very strong vitality, and it's said that if it can last throughout the winter, that it'll bear fruit for many generations. And so it symbolizes this hope that the family that houses this kasane mochi will last for generations. So those are the explanations of the basic kind of kasane mochi or kagami mochi. What's my next slide? Okay. All right. So culture is something that we inherit, so something like the tradition of the kasane mochi, but it's also something that we pass down. So as we spread this culture, it continues to go into the future. It's simultaneously in the past, the present, and the future. And we have control over what it is that we want it to be. So we can maintain, we can create, we can also change a culture. But it must be a conscious choice for us to do any of those things. So let me tell you a story about one of my favorite things during the holidays, ham. So this story it takes many different forms. So perhaps you've heard some kind of form of it, but usually it takes place within a family that's cooking something, like a ham or a roast or something. So a young girl was watching her mother bake a ham for family gathering and noticed her mom cutting off the ends before putting it into the oven. So she asks, as a curious child, "Mom, why do you cut off the ends before baking the ham?" And the mom goes, "I think it helps soak up the juices while it's baking. I'm not sure though. It's just the way your grandma always did it, so I've always cut them off. Why don't you call grandma and ask?" So the little girl phoned her grandma and asked, "Grandma, Mom is making a ham and cut off the ends before placing it in the oven. She says it's probably to help soak up the juices, but she wasn't sure. So she said, you'd know because she learned how to cook from you." And so her grandma says, "That's true. I do cut off the ends of the ham before baking, but I'm not sure why either. I learned how to cook from my mom. You should ask her." So this curious little girl called her great-grandmother and asked, "Great-grandma, the grandma said and mom said that they learned how to cook a ham from watching you. Do you cut off the ends of the ham and use it to soak up the juices?" And great-grandmother chuckles and she goes, "Oh no, sweetie. I just never had a pan big enough to hold a whole ham, so I always had to cut off the ends to make it fit." But essentially, it's this idea within the story of we do things because that's how it's been done, but it isn't always because it's the best way. So it isn't enough just to do things because it's the way that it's been done. Every so often, it's vital for us that we reassess what we're doing and why. You can imagine that it delighted me when some Dharma school students asked me about the purpose of the kasane mochi. So concerning that tradition and all the other ones that we have, if we understand and if we find it beneficial, then we can keep it. Now, it doesn't have to be this profound meaning. If it reminds you of family, or even if you think it's fun and you like it, then that can be enough. And sometimes, it's okay to stop doing things if they don't make sense anymore. So this year, the 125th, is a perfect opportunity for all of us to examine what the culture is now at the Buddhist Church of Sacramento, and if it's what we want it to be, or if it can be even better, and how we are contributing to that change. If you please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.